Let's look at the options for rendering within Chief Architect. So let's first take a look at the camera options. So if I click just Perspective Full Overview, that is going to give me the view of the entire exterior. There it is. So that just gives me a white background and the exterior that I can just zoom around like that. So if I go to back to my floor plan and I use this full camera, this is how I can place a camera exactly where I want it to be. So I'm going to just place a camera out here. You can see there's the camera, the other camera that the perspective full overview camera. So if I place a camera, I can place it exactly where I want it to be. And it's going to give me a slightly different type view. So if you're doing rendering, this is the type of camera that you're going to want to use because it's going to give you the options for this backdrop. So I can position my camera in this view, or I can go here and where is my camera? Oh, I've got my cameras turned off. So let me go back to my layer display and to my perspective camera. So there it is. And I'm going to turn this layer off so that that's not in my way right now. So there's the camera that I have set up. So I can select that camera and double click it to go into the dialog box. Nope, double clicking it is going to give me the view. So I need to go to the dialog box here. So there's, I can name it what I want. So if I want to call this is the front right camera. And then in here, I can get into all of the technical settings for this camera. So I can tell it exactly how high above the floor I want. I can set the tilt angle here, which is very important. You always want that to be at 0 for your architecturals. Unless you are specifically doing some sort of bird's eye view or something like that, that you know exactly how you want that to look, make sure that's set at 0. And then you can set this is another setting that you might need to look at is your field of view. This is how wide the lens is. So that's if you're, want a wide angle lens or you want to tighten it up. So that's those settings. And you can tell it how many of your lights you want to turn on. I always turn this to like 100. That way all my lights are on and it's not limiting me in my lights. So you can get in and look at all of these different options that you have here. And then these are more of the display options. And then this is the backdrop. So I can go here to select the backdrop, and then Chief has all of these built in. So if I wanted to have a different backdrop for it, all sorts of different ones that you can choose for. So let's just look at that one. Okay, so there's the backdrop, and then you can control the layer and the how that label is, how that camera is showing there. So if I click OK, so now this is changed to my front right camera, and there's that different background that I chose for it. So that's the camera options. And so once we're in this view, we're going to have some different rendering options. Okay, let's look at the render display options. This button here is going to be your rendering techniques. So we'll click that. And then these are all the different view types that we can have. So right now we're in the standard view, and vector view is going to give us that style. Kind of the colors with the lines. So Glass House will give us the see-through kind of look. There's the duotone, gives you kind of like a sepia tone effect. And a technical illustration will give you just the lines. You can make it into a painting technique. Watercolor. Watercolor is similar to the painting technique, and then it has the lines over top. but it creates the whole look. And then the line drawing. The line drawing is going to give you this sort of hand-drawn look. And then the physically based rendering, which is referred to a lot as the PBR, will look like this. So this is kind of more of your real-time rendering like you see in some other rendering engines. So that is the different views that you can get here. And then you can go into the technique options. And within here is where you can fine tune any of these. So if I go back to my standard view, I have options here. Let's look at that line drawing. So this is the one that looks like a hand drawn. So you can tell it how squiggly you want the lines. You can change your extensions here. So you can get in and customize how that looks. The watercolor has the option to put the lines on top or not have the lines on top. And it's going to be moving a little bit more slowly while you've got this rendering techniques open, because it has to recalculate every single object that you have. So just bear that in mind and do this kind of thing at the very end when you're really ready to get into the rendering. So I'm actually just going to go back to the standard view for now. And I'm going to exit out of there, and I'm going to show you a couple of ways that I use this for my construction drawings. This is what I use to send over for my construction drawings. So I will take a quick view of these, and I can either just take a screenshot, or I can send them over to my layout, which I will show you how to do that when we get over to doing our construction documents. But I typically will use this view or this view for using in my construction documents to illustrate in 3D my project. So the other one that I like to use is the floor overview. And you can position your camera straight above. You can get that position straight above, and then you can have a 3D view of your floor plan. And then you can do all of the same render techniques if you wanted to in there as well for any of these cameras. And I also will use the full overview camera. You can zoom inside. And I will use this as well to set up quick views and just use a screenshot or a send to the layout to show interiors for my construction documents. If I wanted to save this as an image to use elsewhere or just as an image on its own, then all I would do would be to go to export, and then I would export the picture. And I can tell it here how the resolution that I want. So if I wanted a nice resolution, I would make it to 300 for sure. And then I could bump this up to however large I want the image to be. So, and that will retain the aspect ratio of the screen here. And then, so then I would just click OK and save that as the painting. Exterior painting. And then it's going to create an image file for that. The next option that you have within Chief is to do a ray tracing. And we are in X12 right now. And I know that in the new version that's coming out, X13, there will be a new rendering engine. And so a lot of this may change, and I'll do an update for this segment when the new rendering techniques come out. But right now we've got a ray trace option. And so let me show you what that looks like. That is this camera button right here. that's going to be the ray trace. And that is going to give you this pop-up. And so you can choose your presets here. So let's see, we want the exterior ray trace, default exterior ray trace. And let's see, we can go here. Oh, no, let's go out of that. Oh, sorry. You can go there and it will give you this pop-up window. So we'll do the outdoor, and then we can go through and we can tell it how we want it to output here. So this will be your image quality when it's finished. So this is a low resolution. So if you want a nice high resolution, you need to make sure you set that higher to like 300 is a good one. And then you can set your overall width and height of your pixels like this too. Let's see, you can change it to millimeter if you wanted to. So we'll just keep that as it is. And then you have your environment settings. So if you're doing a nighttime or daytime, and you can set your blur and finish. So that will help you with some of your settings. And then you're going to want to have all of your lights and everything else already set up when you get here. But then you're going to just click Ray Trace. And basically that is going to start a process that could take as little time or as long of a time as you want it to. So it gives you this window and it starts. We probably aren't going to be able to see this take shape right here because this is a fairly slow process, and it does what it does, like passes. So here's the time, and so it's on pass 1 right now, and you can just let this go as long as you want it to go, and it will just keep rendering it and rendering it and rendering it until you stop it. So I'm just actually going to stop the ray trace. I'm just going to pause that ray trace right now. So that is the overview really of ray tracing and the rendering options within Chief Architect. So you may not want to use the ray trace or the other rendering options here within Chief Architect. You may want to export this 3D model for rendering in other programs. I export mine for exterior renders into Lumion, and for my interiors, I do an export into the eDesign Tribe platform. So I'll just go over those, an overview of how you do that. The first thing you are going to want to do is turn off any layers that you don't want to export. So anything that you're not going to want to see in your other rendering, you need to make sure you turn those layers off. And you can always set up a hidden layer if you just want to hide something. But once your model is ready to go, then you would go to File and Export. And then you're going to choose from one of these 3D file formats. And typically I am going to either export as a Collada file or a 3ds file, depending. If I'm going into Lumion, I'm doing a Collada file. If I want to render into the eDesign Tribe platform, then I have to process this through SketchUp. You can only upload a SketchUp file. You can't upload any of these files into eDesign Tribe. So you have to process it through SketchUp first. So you're going to need to look at your version of SketchUp and see what type of files that you can import. There's different versions of SketchUp, and different versions will take different types of models. So just check and see what yours can take, and then export the appropriate model. So the appropriate file type. So I'm just going to, for the example here, I'm going to export the Collada file, and I did a test earlier and I called it sample. So I'm just going to call it sample again and save. And yes, I already have one. I know that. And then it calculates all of the geometry and creates a .dae file that then you can open up your other program and go through the import process with whatever program that you're using, and use that import process to open up the model in the other program. So let's look at interiors. Here's interiors. So you're going to want to be in your 3D view, and then we're going to go to File, Export, and you've got the same options here as in Premiere. So, okay, let's look at Home Designer Pro. So you'll want to be in your 3D view and go to File, Export, and you're going to have fewer options here, but you can export as your 3D model as the DAE like we did before, or as an STL. So just check your version of whatever you're trying to export into and see if those will work for you. And let's just go back over to Premiere. And those are all of your options for rendering and exporting for Chief Architect.